the scientific theme of this week is elasticity. And the reason we talk about elasticity in this class is that it is, so if you want to be scientific about this, it is kind of one of the closest ways you can get to describing things like mouthfeel and texture of foods. So if you think about what makes a good food be the way it is, you certainly have flavor, but then you have that mouthfeel and texture. And if you wanted to describe that, to describe it with elasticity is actually not a bad way to do it. You can then elaborate on that, and you can also, of course, if it's a liquid food, you can talk about the viscosity, but elasticity is very good when it comes to solid foods. So for example, this is important when we talk about steak. Elasticity actually describes the texture of steak pretty well. So when you start out with a raw steak, it has a low elastic modulus. It's quite sort of squishy. And then as you cook it, you get a firmer and firmer steak. If you don't like steak, you can talk about tofu. I prefer tofu. Tofu comes in soft tofu and in firm tofu. And you can then, if you really wanted to then look at the elasticity, you can go and you can put little weights on the tofu. And you can measure how many weights can you put on the tofu before it squishes too much, and how much does it squish. You can do the same thing with steak. You can do this with raw steak. You can measure how high it is, and then as you add the weights, how much does it squish together. You can then cook the steak, and you can see how much the elasticity changes, right? This is, sometimes we joke that in this class we ruin food. This may be one of them. So if you then wanted to understand what happens in that steak as you squish on it, you can think of it the way you would think of a spring. So how many of you remembers this picture from some physics class a long time ago? Yeah, some of you. So this is how you would typically talk about forces, and then when you put a force on the spring, it expands, and it expands by a certain length, and if we measure that length, we can understand how springy or stiff the spring was. So you can do the same thing with food. So that is the same thing as we do there, except here we're then sort of also taking into account that the steak has an area, and the weight is distributed over that entire area. Okay. Does that make sense? See, they really wanted to take over now. They're like, can you please start talking? Sorry. Jim is deep in thought.
What about like the percentage of fat?
What about the percentage of fat?
I mean, obviously the density of fat is different than the density of muscle.
Yes, good. So this is
fat and muscle is muscle.
Very good. So there's all kinds of things that are going to affect how squishy the steak is. Yeah. And you're saying that has something to do with the fat.
Well, I mean, you'll never get two cuts of meat that are, unless they were from the same cloned, two clones.
Right.
I mean, I think it would be very, very difficult. Even then, I think it would be very difficult to
It's
exact.
complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the human aspect that we're tinkering with our hands.
We were talking about before,
and we're measuring things with our eyes and writing things down.
Yeah, see, chefs always beat us up because we're simplifying things too much. But.
And then why does going to philosophy, why does mouthfeel matter?
That's a whole other lecture.
That has to do with this idea, concept of sensual pleasure. That if a food is feels good to eat, you'll probably eat more of it.
Yeah.
We know that if food is loaded with sugar, we tend to eat a lot more of it. I mean, at least that's what Hi. I'm so glad that this lecture is not sponsored by Cargill or ConAgra. It's kind of nice. It's refreshing. Yeah.
We try to be professional.
Although,
so can I just show this picture, because I think this one is just going to kill you, Jim. This picture is just going to kill you, because this is taking. This is taking all the complexity you just talked about, and it's boiling it down to saying that elasticity that you see in the steak is due to some cross-link distance within the steak. And so this is similar to what we've seen before when we cooked eggs, and we talked about 3 weeks ago about how that cooking of the eggs is due to the proteins unfolding and then recoagulating, and they form this network, they form this gel. And it's also similar to the Jell-O that forms when you make Jell-O. So if you really simplify things, then you boil it down, and you can then apply, let me see, this equation. And you can say that that elasticity, that squishiness that you measure, is all due to the cross-link distance. And so this is a way you can just describe foods in general. And this is the same thing that happens in gluten. So now we're getting closer. So in gluten, there are these glutenin strands and gliadin strands, and they are going to bind together. Many gluten molecules are going to bind together with cysteine bonds and form these long, intricate gluten networks that are going to bind together. And when you squish on that, they're going to have an elasticity similar to what the steak has, or the egg has, or the Jell-O has. So you can take this, you can apply a lot of the same equations. So that's what we do in class. See, now I totally ruined it, didn't I?
No, not at all.
Okay, he's very polite. Right. So you can then, if you think about what the molecular structure of this gluten network looks like, then you can think about, well, what actually happens when you add more or less salt, when you have a high protein flour, when you have fats and oils in there, when you have a high humidity or a low humidity, when you have a high pressure, low pressure, then you can start to understand how that happens. So, enough of me.
Can you leave that last one up? I like that. It might be useful
You
for
like
them.
it?
Just, yeah, you know,
Okay.
it'll remind me
We'll
what
leave
I
it.
need to do with them.
That's good, that's good. Okay, so enough of that. So let me please introduce Jim Lahey of Solomon Street Bakery. We're really excited. We're so excited to have Jim here tonight. A while back, should I tell the story? So a while back, I was surfing around on the internet, and I'd heard of Jim, and he came up as part of the general feed. And I watched this video of you where you were making doughs, and then you were talking about viscosity and elasticity, and he was using all these scientific terms, and I was like, I want to meet this guy. So guys, you can now all meet this guy. Let's welcome Jim.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here. I mean, as someone who dropped out of college or got kicked out and then dropped out, it's kind of cool that a really highfalutin school like Harvard would invite a hack like me to come here and talk about elasticity in dough. I had, over the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, fantasized what I would do, and unfortunately nothing, as life sometimes prevents us from doing the things that we think we're going to do. I'm going to do something else instead, which probably would be more interesting. So I came up with this idea that if this idea about elasticity, that if it sticks, it sucks, and if it sucks, it sticks, as a way of describing things that are not elastic, but sticky. Because obviously things that are elastic at some point are kind of sticky. I mean, even meat, fat, obviously when you add flour and water together and you make a polymer, it's sticky. So what I was going to do is I was going to do 2 doughs. One dough I was going to make by hand, and during the process of making the dough, just kind of stream of thought, whatever comes to my mind, about the process that I'm doing. And then on the other side, I was going to do a very fast, no-knead dough with turns, which is like a no-knead dough, except rather than actually using my physical energy to kind of get the dough to align. I mean, there are other ways I can do it as well. I could just mix the flour and water together and let it sit, and then begin to manipulate it. But I figured the bigger the mess I make, the more fun it would be. So I had learned to do this by buying a textbook some 25 years ago from a publisher, Van Nostrand Reinhold. You ever heard of this publishing house? Well, there used to be a publishing house for like academic or science books, and they published a series on artisan baking by a bunch of very renowned French bakers. So it's it's like a very kind of French point of view in terms of the style of the baking. However, the universal holds true in that, this is something that human beings have been engaged with, i.e. the making of some form of fermented bread, probably for, I would guess about 8,000 years, but in terms of archaeological evidence, I think it's only 6,000 years of evidence, but I'm sure it goes back further. So I just have about 1 kilo of flour here, and I'll show you what I'm just going to add the flour. This is a negligible amount of salt, 10 grams of salt. I'm making like have any of you been to my bakery in New York City? So you ever had a pizza bianca? Pizza bianca. So this is basically like a pizza bianca dough. And this, I was told by my confederates here, is about 1 liter of water. So I'm just going to try to make this as wet as possible. And this is pretty wet. That's wet. It's as wet as it will get. That's exhibit number A, exhibit A. And actually, I did forget to put yeast in here, so I'm going to have to remember to do that now. So I'm just so you know that it's an imperfect science, and this can be done. So there is a difference between these two doughs. One dough is a bleached flour from some supermarket, and the other one is a labeled and unbleached flour. So I guess one has some type of bleaching agent in it, and the other one does not. But these are not particularly like pedigreed flours. They're probably just the general commodity wheat that you get from. It's like it's just so white. It's unbelievable. I haven't seen flour this white since. Well, I was gonna make a joke, but I'm not gonna go there. You guys, sick people, sick. So this, I'm just going to put this together. Oh, crikey. So I'm just going to kind of put this dough together very quickly and allow it to sit and then start turning it. About every, can someone be so corny as to put, oh, maybe I should put my timer on. Just every 15 minutes, actually ideally every 20 minutes. So I'll probably get the dough to turn once or twice before. But you'll see the textural thing. This dough, on the other hand, we're gonna beat it up. And by beating it up, I mean beat it up. Just trying to keep my hands clean, I feel bad that I'm making such a mess in this. And look, somebody even put like gaffer's tape down here and everything. I could try to do it on this tabletop, but it's going to be a big mess. So let's not. And we're not going to eat this, so we are kind of committing a mortal sin. All right, so this dough is going to be, I'm going to try to make it even wetter than it is. Oh, that sounds good that you made that noise. I like that. You're making me feel like I actually I do have a show for you. So this dough will come together, and I might even add more water to it. And so I learned this technique of throwing dough down. I told you it's going to be messy. But what you're going to see over the next 10 minutes or so as I talk, oh, look at that. So you can see the dough beginning to stick together. It does have a certain degree of cohesion and elasticity, although scientific language, it's disaggregated. It's not together. It's not elastic. So by causing friction, in part, it's also chemically over time, the dough will begin to adhere to itself. So I don't need to do this, which is what I'm kind of famous for, which is this no-knead recipe. And if you could, and believe it or not, this will, I warned you. I warned you. This will come together. And I will be covered in sweat and pieces of dough. And if it doesn't come together, it was funny and I made you laugh, which might even have a greater value in the long term. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep trying to create as much friction as possible with this dough until, am I getting anyone in the front row? Okay. But you will see it come together. I ought to have asked for a plastic dough scraper, but we'll use a special at work. Just fine. Thankfully, we're not eating this. Who knows what was on this countertop, right? Sort of odd experiments are here. Oh, this is pretty wet, actually. I take that back. There's a high probability that this dough will not come together. In which case, you will all be getting your money back at the door. But I swear to God, I did this class one time at NYU's Department of Nutritional Studies. I forget what floor it was on, and I had an entire classroom of people doing this on metal tables. And we had like 5 or 6 people come up from the floor below, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And once you get used to this method, you're basically taking the dough, stretching it out, and throwing it down, This is entertaining, right? Okay. So, this could be like the coolest performance art piece, especially if I'd only keep my fucking mouth shut. Oops, sorry. Does anyone have doubt that this dough, holy sh... Oh, I just ruined my new sneakers. Damn. Okay. Knew that would happen. So we're testing the limit of the hydration of this dough, like how much water and how much liquid this particular flour can hold. And depending on the quality of the protein in the flour as well. More the quantity than the quality. You see, you want to hear that noise. If you hear that noise, it's good. It means things are beginning to stick. And the texture is changing a little bit. It was actually stiffer and thicker in the beginning, if you noticed. And the more I began to knead the dough, or agitate the dough, the more liquid it appears. I'm going to try to contain myself and not get everyone in the first row disgustingly messy. And this can go on for quite some time, so we better talk about something else. So, I started baking bread as a way of quieting my troubled mind, and found a lot of solace in it. And I kind of became a bread junkie when I went to Italy. Although I have to say, if you were to go to Italy today, you would not become a bread junkie. You would be on a bread-free diet, because the bread in Italy right now is, for the most part, pretty bad. They're going through a new dark ages. They've forgotten that they're a country that has this long history and tradition of food making, and it just, holy crap. I should have painted myself blue, right? But you see the texture of the dough is beginning to, it is. And this isn't dissimilar to like having a mixer, other than the fact that the cleaning up is kind of like a. We were having a conversation at dinner about what a big mess I'm capable of making. Yeah. Especially when I enter a room and there's flour. And eventually this dough will, through this agitation, begin to adhere. There's probably some degree of evaporation taking place, obviously because I'm taking this dough and I'm spreading it out, and we're making a big mess. And my beautiful apron that I was given, my commemorative apron, they're not new. I knew what I was coming here for, so I dressed appropriately. So has the 15-minute mark occurred yet? Okay. Okay, good. Let's see if I can get this dough together in 6 minutes. That would be redeeming. So I would suggest that if you were to do this in your shower. Set yourself up with a nice table in your shower. But please wear some form of clothing when you're doing this. It just gets too weird otherwise. I don't think anyone's going to want to eat what you make. And just but you can see the dough is beginning to develop cohesion it didn't have before. Its texture is beginning to change. And this really is a 1-to-1 ratio of flour to water, because I was told that there was a liter of water in there and we've used it all. And the flour was a little less than a kilo. So there we have it. We're almost there. 5 minutes to go. 4 minutes, right? Now you're going to notice the other dough is going to come about probably better with a lot less effort. Imagine if I could aim it. I mean, it'd be so cool. You in the 4th row. Duck! If you have children, this is a great thing to do, experiment to do with them. If you have people helping you clean your house up, that's even better. But if you don't, that's a great exercise in how to clean up a huge mess. So what I'm doing by doing this is I'm causing those protein molecules to align. And it's not like they're alone. I mean, there's also a lot of starch involved in the structure and texture of dough. I could have added the salt later if the quantity of salt was higher, and that would actually have a helpful effect on the tightening of the dough. And my science friends can tell me, and I think it's because of because salt and water are opposite polarities. Is this true? Are the same polarity? Salt, water, polarity. Same? Oh shit! That goes that theory. I did. See, I told you I'm not a scientist. I did ruin my eyeglass case though, but that's okay. Come on, dough. You're gonna come together. Behave. Anyway, when I do add salt to dough, maybe you could tell me why. It does tighten the dough up. I probably should have. Another weird thing about dough and things that are really sticky, apart from the fact that they're kind of like, I think in general human beings avoid them, are excited by them, and at the same time kind of kind of get like weird is because it's like sticky. It's gross. It's like, it's like King Kong just blew a booger out or something, It's like, so I mean, there's this thing about things that are wet and sticky that, in general, don't work well with machinery. For example, like the reason why most bread that we eat is lacking texture, flavor, is because most of the foods that we eat are manufactured mechanically. Very, very little of the bread we eat per capita is made by crafts people or just people in general, not craft or not craft. Most of the food that we eat is usually manufactured. I think we're almost there. I'll be saying this for like the next 20 minutes or so. Until the sweat pours down from my face into this dough, which you will not, that no one will eat. You weren't expecting this, were you? Are we there yet? Time-wise? Oh, okay. This is our experiment. Oh, gross. Like, totally. It's like, oh, man. This is the worst it's ever been. I haven't done this, by the way, this demonstration. I haven't done this in like 20 years. Just so it's kind of special to kind of go back to the origins of my baking. I used to make these very large batches of dough. I kid you not, like 20, 30 pounds of dough in a garage in Brooklyn. Yep, you heard it, Brooklyn. And I'm glad I kind of stopped doing that because it was a real mess. Time's up. Okay. So I'm just going to take this dough, and this is approximately the same hydration. Same hydration. I'm just going to fold it over like this. And that's it. I think this method's going to win. It already looks nicer. Look at that. It's even got elasticity. Dang. And no mess. I am also available for children's parties, bar mitzvahs, weddings. You want some unique. I can see the dough is actually beginning to come together, so I'm kind of excited now, motivated. They were so upset with me at NYU, pretty much like they are going to be at Harvard, that they never invited me back. And I'm not doing this to try to like coat everyone in the first round. Oh, that was bad. Usually when I do this, I get like a big globule on the face. That hasn't happened yet, thankfully. But if it does, feel free to laugh. Because at the end of the day, every little bit helps. So if you laugh, it's good. It's all good. The bread you can make using this method is as good as bread that you could make using a stand mixer. So there's no real reason to do this other than being able to understand what happens if you take dough and you throw it on a tabletop as if it actually matters. Like, I actually question the validity of this method right now because when I was learning how to bake, that's all they had. Vis-a-vis this French book, the French guy, and he's going like this. So. Sorry, is there any French people here? I'm not insulting. You guys have a basketball team, right? Here in Boston, right? Right? What's the big basketball team here? What's their mascot and their logo? Some encephalitic kind of little guy, right? This should be a class action suit by the whole country of Ireland. against the city of Boston for characterizing Irish people as encephalitic and belligerent. Do you think about that? Negative, really negative. I mean, because sports teams now are having their across this great land of ours, sports teams are having their day in terms of the names of sports teams. I was going to start making some jokes, but tasteless jokes, but I'll stay away from the subject. I might piss someone off. I can always make fun of Irish people because I'm genealogically Irish. I guess it's not the same, is it? Oh, gross. Ugh, come on. Come together. Ugh. It really will. I swear to you. I know that this is a big mess, and I feel like I'm in this creating a halo around me of splatter. It's kind of, I'm really in trouble, aren't I, Pia? No, I'm in big trouble. I can tell. How many minutes are we total on this exercise? I'm going to theorize that at about 14 minutes, at about 18 minutes, it's going to start to appear as a dough. Because, have I gotten anyone yet in the front row? Okay, but you're not I don't see any globules on your bags or, okay, let's try a little harder then. I didn't need that shirt anyway. Ugh. So, this method, I'm trying to discredit this method. This method, which is published in this book, I think the book was, does anyone know the baker Eric Kaiser? Eric Kaiser. So, he was one of the main bakers featured in this book. He was so young. So, what's interesting is that it might not be true that all this physical activity, is it really helping align the protein molecules, or is it just like a wank? Is this masturbating? Do any of you know any masturbators? Chronic masturbators that put tables in their showers and knead dough? So I just got my worth from this because I'm making you guys laugh. And that matters more to me than actually teaching you a darn thing about baking bread, because I made your lives richer today. But you'll see that this still will come together. I'm willing it. It's my ego. I gotta make it come together. It's gotta stick together. Come on, dough. Come on. Just kidding. You can't talk to dough. That would be the definition of insanity, right? But I can see the texture of the dough. It's developing a lot of cohesion. I mean, there's this thing called the autolyse that takes place. This period in which the flour and starch absorb water and the protein begins to denature. But you hear that the sound is changing. It's becoming more of a thud. It's definitely getting cohesive. Come on, it's not a dough yet. Encore. Oh my. Oh my, you should see back here, it's even worse. So I came to the conclusion of the no-knead method after practicing this for years before I opened up a bakery. And the reason why I came up with this method was it dawned on me that there's no way ancient civilizations who had policies of global domination and expansion based on a wheat economy, not a petroleum or technology economy, there's no way that the Romans, for example, could conquer the world if they had to be engaged in this master baking. They would have been too tired. There would have been revolts that we would have heard about that probably would have preceded Christianity. Oh my, there's a big one over there, right next to your feet. But you see the dough is actually beginning to develop a little bit more cohesiveness and body at about the 20-minute mark. Are we at 20 minutes yet, more or less? Pete, did I get you? Good. 20? Oh, okay. But the total amount of time I've been eating now, close to 20? Oh, Jesus. Sweating like a dog here. And actually, typically what happens too is the dough begins to become more cohesive. You end up having more creative strands of dough that kind of fly in all sorts of weird directions. But this is a good experiment. I have how many more minutes for the other turn? Now, the other problem with this experiment, folks, is that dough B, call this dough A. That's my bald head, isn't it? Look at that. I got a mole. Okay. I am sweating, aren't I? We know what they say. Balds have more fun. It's a bad joke. Bald is beautiful. It's happening, it's happening. You can see it. It's a formless mass, but it's going to come together. It's 3, maybe 4 minutes away, maybe 50 or 60 of these kind of things that I'm doing to the dough. I've lost about 2/3 of the weight of the dough on the floor and walls. I would also recommend too for the crew here, I'll stay after and help clean as a gesture of goodwill and charity. Because I feel bad that I'm making such a mess at this prestigious school. I missed. I was trying to get you in the eye, man. Take that, gluten intolerance. So, gluten intolerance. Should we talk about gluten intolerance? This is a form of gluten intolerance. Do we talk about gluten intolerance here? Do we talk about what's unique about gluten, or bread, or wheat, or any of the plants associated with wheat? It is really a special and unique protein because of its particular properties, not dissimilar to, as I was discussing with Pia, but I wasn't like talking like this, I was just saying like latex or rubber. And the reason why I say it reminds me of rubber in a weird way. And actually, if you've ever washed, have any of you ever washed gluten out of flour? Done the little, okay. It's very gummy and chewy. Has anyone ever made seitan? It's nice, right? Meat substitute. Well, I was just thinking, I wonder if there's a way to stabilize chemically. Oh, nice. I got Peter. I got you? Good, Pete. Sorry, Peter, sorry. I'm trying to keep it local, lower. When do I have to turn the other dough, folks? Am I there yet? Am I past schedule? Okay. I'm just hopeful that this dough can come together before the 3 minutes are up. Would you ever try this at home? Have I dissuaded you from making a big mess? Then I also have succeeded. No way. You would try this? You would try it? Yeah? Yeah, it's kind of fun. I'm almost tempted to have audience participation. But I think what I'll do is when the dough is done, I'm going to pass the dough around, and you guys can play with it if you want. I don't want to see the dough again afterwards. Oh, gross. Look at this. Maya, it's true. I do make a mess wherever I go. My wife was commenting that wherever I go, I make a mess. I mean, not metaphoric mess. I mean like an actual physical, tangible mess. Yeah, but the texture of the dough, do you see it changing? Becoming somewhat, it's still not cohesive yet, but it's beginning to web. And what you're looking for is webbing. So the discussion on bread and elasticity and mouthfeel would be something like, people talk about bread still in terms of whether there are big holes or not. Have you heard that? It has to have the big holes in it. Have you heard that? But I mean, it's probably not the most important thing about bread. The most important thing about bread is the wheat and where the wheat came from. And unfortunately, not dissimilar to the use of glyphosate as a pesticide, as a herbicide, on the heels of the Green Revolution, not dissimilar. At that point in human history, it was extremely important to use science to solve the problem or to capitalize on the success humanity was having at producing food at even greater levels. And there are a lot who believe, as do I, that at the end of the day it was a great milestone. However, if one tried to legalize an herbicide like glyphosate today, it would never pass. It would never be allowed to be used in the marketplace, because we know more now than we did in 1971. So the texture is beginning to actually become a bit of a dough. All right, am I at the 3-minute mark, folks? I need reprieve. I need a break. Okay. Oh, Jesus. I was going to wipe my forehead with my hand, but I'm not going to do that. I've stepped into that one before. So I'm going to take this dough. This is no need. And just give it a couple turns. This is we could play like Metallica over there. And then when we come to this side, we should have like Bach. I was thinking, yeah, Bach. Right? And I can stick to anything now. It's like, Jesus. I'm not even religious, but Jesus. So are we doing every 15 minutes on this turns or every 20? And how much more time do I have in this lecture? Because I gotta have to time the conclusion, the grand finale. What will the grand finale be? Yeah, so I used to do this. I swear to God, I used to do this. I would stay up all night long. I'd make 4 or 5 batches of dough as a protean hipster. It's like a Jackson Pollock piece, right? Yeah. And I would, in my little garage in Brooklyn, I would go into Manhattan with a basket full of bread, like a large, kind of like one of those big rattan baskets, like the size of a coffin or something. And I would sell bread on the streets of New York City, and that's kind of how my bakery was born. But I have to say, once I abandoned this method, life became a lot nicer. However, it is a really cool thing to see this blob become a something, which it's now becoming, as it really is changing. You see it changing, right? It's really getting stickier, cohesive. I mean, it's at its most sticky state, when it's not cohesive, although I guess the size and degree of suction it can create because of its texture is different. If it sticks, it sucks. If it sucks, it sticks. I'd say I keep saying we're like 5 minutes away, but gross. I knew I should have been an accountant. But we're getting there. I'm not going to give up. I can't leave here until this is an actual dough. And I see it. I see you can notice this here. These areas that are kind of sticky and stuff. But the dough is actually beginning to adhere to itself, which is what we want. Or what I would like to see happen. How are we doing mess-wise, guys? Okay? Okay, go. Get my head out of the way. How many minutes do I have to go over there now? What, 10? Okay, good. This has got to happen now. So I've been doing this for almost 25 minutes now, right? More. Jesus. I shouldn't say Jesus. Say something else. Willikers. I mean, this could be accomplished in less than 3 minutes in a stand mixer, believe it or not. Everything that I'm doing here. You see, the dough is now beginning to stick to itself, which is what we were looking for. On your chin, right on your chin. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Harvard's going to cover that. They told me that there's, oh no, I feel really bad. Now I feel really bad. Okay. Do not wash that sweater in hot water. It'll be ruined. I'm so sorry. Now I feel really bad. You know what we should have done is we should have planned to have like a Blue Man group. Everyone should have been given a piece of clear plastic in the front row. Hi, Pia. Pia's my daughter. She's there. You having fun, Pia? Okay. Just distraction. But you can see the dough is actually becoming a dough. Do not buy this book, by the way, by Van Nostrand Reinhold, unless you're a masochist. Ah, but in France, this is how they make the bread, huh? Oh, but you see how it is really beginning to adhere to itself or become cohesive. The issue is keeping it all together as it begins to, oh, gross. It's everywhere. Everywhere. I feel really bad. Sorry, guys. I do. I don't want to make anyone's clothing messy other than my own. All right, now the perspiration is beginning, so I know we're close. There will be no moan, though, when this is done. There will be no cry of ecstasy. There'll be no, ah, it's done. No, that will not happen. No, no, no. Not here. This is an experiment. Not an experiment. This is, I'd say, close to 100% hydration, if not more. This is, you seeing the difference in the dough, or is it my imagination? You see it, right? Okay, good. But imagine if during antiquity, the Greeks or the Romans or the Phoenicians or the Egyptians, no wonder the Jews left Egypt, if they had to do this shit. They'd be like, I'm out of here, dude. I'm out of here. I'm not even gonna put yeast in it. Forget about it. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, as the dough becomes more cohesive, these pieces will fly off into all, like probably up toward the top, I would even say. It's quite probable. But you see, it's really becoming, oh, I could even take some of the stuff off you. Gross. Get back in there. And I will pass this dough around for all of you to play with and finger at your whatever, just to have fun, just to see that it actually did happen. Live dough. Oh my, back here. Now I could stop now and allow the dough to sit, and it would develop a little bit more cohesiveness, but I think that because we've taken it this far, you might as well. I'm gonna ask everyone in the front row to find seats in the, no, just kidding. You guys seem to be having a good time. What's a little like staining? It'll be like a nice little, oh, that was the time that crazy guy, I swear. What was that?
The seats are changing.
Yeah, the seats are becoming, that's what I'm saying. They're never going to invite me back here. They're never going to invite me back. I'll never be invited back to another World's Fair by my government. And I will never be invited back to Harvard to do a lecture on. What? What happened? There's a first time for everything, don't you think? But this is really becoming a dough, as you can see. And it's at that point, and I don't know what causes it. Is it the production of those, is it like those, just sounds scientific. Is it the production of thiols from the disulfur hydroxyl groups? Is it? Is it? Help me out, brother. Help me out. Tell me. Disulfides from the thiols. I said, thank you, brother. Thank you. Is that what's happening chemically in the dough? What's your name, young man? Tim. Tim. Like your name already, Tim. Sounds like Jim. It's a wishbone. Perfect wishbone. Look at that. Look at that. And you see, I'm throwing it at this table with as much force as possible. I'm never going to be invited back, am I? This is like I would love one day to be invited back, but now we know, plastic. Oh, Pia's like, Pia's thinking to herself, I am in so much trouble. Oh my God. Sorry, Pia. That's why, as an act of charity and contrition, I will help clean after. For my sins, I will make up for my sins. Oh, what the hell is this? Foreign matter? I don't even want to know. It was kind of gray. Could have been something that a professor left on this tabletop. We're so close, guys. We really are. And this guy's leaving because he's like, I can't take this anymore. I came here for a serious discussion about dough, protein, and elasticity. And we've got some mashugana. throwing dough on a table, making all sorts of inappropriate jokes. Yeah, but what I see taking place, though, if you notice when I pick the dough up, it's adhering to itself. And it's actually forming good suction as opposed to bad suction. It doesn't have this kind of film, like that film, right? But actually it's beginning to I call it picking up clean. And when you mix dough in a mixer, you see the same phenomenon toward the end of the mix, which is called the pickup, which is where you have this development of the gluten in the flour. And obviously, because of the water ratio in this dough, it's extreme, because this is like, as much water as one. I mean, if I had made a dough that had 15 to 20% less water, I would have already had a beautifully formed dough. But the objective of this exercise was to show you sorry about that, your bag, was to show you the extreme, not what you can easily achieve, but what might be more difficult to achieve. What's unique about bread is that you can do this. Oh, do I need to go to the other day yet? Am I overdue on the other day? Okay. I think we might even have it. This is like 3 cycles. Oh my God. I'm not doing this again tomorrow, by the way. I gotta do something. I got another act. I gotta figure because I'm gonna die. Maybe what we'll do tomorrow is I'll just buy a roll of, this would be funny. Yeah, we should do the same thing. But we'll buy a couple rolls of plastic. Because then the people that are sitting in the front row will be freaking out like, what did we do wrong? Why are you covering us up with plastic for? What's this? What's up? I don't mind being laughed at, by the way. I'm just like, as long as you're not laughing with me. The best line of the evening, I think. Okay. Ooh! Because it's actually beginning to adhere to itself. It's making that noise of a dough that's done. And it's achieving webbing. Elasticity. Now, if we let this sit for about 10 minutes or longer, we should be able to stretch it out pretty long, which could actually be fun for the sake of the class. I could, for the sake of making life easier tomorrow, you just do this whole demonstration at a mixer. Yeah? What? Oh, it's time 10? Okay. La, 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 la. Okay. Oh, gross. Oh my God. I can see the crew here at night. They'd be like, what is this? This guy, he ruined our day. Now we got to spend like 4 hours cleaning. We usually come in here, all we do is sweep up, and now we got to figure out how do we get this stuff off. My supervisor's like, show me a new one tomorrow, and I'm, oh my God. But I did get it out of my system. So, and we're almost there. We're almost there. We almost have a cohesive mass. But you see what I'm saying? What happens when when the dough actually becomes more formed, it does have a tendency of flying a little bit more. I swear to God, there is a book that shows this step by step. I mean, it's not as long as this. But you gotta, when you're looking at a book and you're 20, whatever, 19, 20 years old, and I'm looking at the book, I'm like, but when? How? Because it never happened. But if you just, eventually it will come together. stamina alone, right? Great upper body exercise, by the way. But I think we have cohesion. We have cohesion. And I can use this to pick up everything on the table now. Almost. See, we're getting there. I knew it would happen eventually. Towel? Just kidding. My poor shoes. And I have to stop off at Alden shoes and get a nice pair of wingtips after this, now that I'm... Yeah, but I think we're there. See, so now you have a cohesive mass, and actually... I'm not through with you yet, man. You want a piece of me? But you can see it's beginning to web. And it's becoming very cohesive. And it probably has a little bit to do with evaporation, that in this period of time that I've been eating, I've probably lost about most of the dough, but I mean, we could measure the weight of this blob, and then we can come up with a real estimate of how much of the dough we lost. I would think we lost about a quarter, a little less than a quarter, like maybe 300 grams, maybe like 100 grams or so. Yeah. So this is an elastic, sticky mess. Agony, right? Don't do this. This actually should be allowed to rest for at least 20 minutes or longer because the dough hasn't kind of relaxed. But this dough, for argument's sake, I mean, I'll let it sit in the bowl for 5 minutes and I'll pass it around. And the reason why is it's completely cohesive now and actually picks up cleanly from the table. It doesn't leave a residue or very little residue, if any residue at all, ideally. And this is definitely about 100% hydration, if not more. So a little ball here. It's very elastic. It's very smooth. I'll put it in the bowl. Let's say, oh my God, I ruined my notebook. It was a no-brainer. And so, so that's an experiment, not experiment, but a demonstration on how to knead by hand in this very intensive way. But I think it's better to use my no-knead method. And I've got books outside, which are really, really cool, and including the recipe for pizza bianca as well. But going back to, if it sticks, it sucks. So this has more suction or less suction. I think it has a lot of suction, actually. Let me see. Yes, it has a lot of suction. But it's not as sticky as it, well, I guess it's as sticky as it was before. Oh, it's less, yeah, it's definitely stickier than it was before. But it does have a tendency of sticking to itself, which is good. Well, if I don't need the dough, and going back to that, the mouthfeel and product texture, and I use this method of turning, I can get an identical crumb structure, an identical mouthfeel, if I kind of failed to get the dough to become cohesive either by mixing it mechanically or by turning it and allowing the protein molecules to kind of align themselves from just denaturing and unraveling and kind of doing their thing naturally. The product texture tends to be cakier. It also tends to be denser. I mean, part of it as well has to do with the dough fermenting properly. That regardless of fermentation plays a huge role in in product texture. And if you don't get fermentation on wheat, and also another thing too about wheat is that if it's not good wheat, and I in quotation marks the word good, if it's not high quality wheat, it might not be able to ferment that much. You can still make bread with it, but are you familiar with tolerance? The concept of tolerance, wheat tolerance. Okay. Flours are graded by by the quantity of protein that they have in them, and then they're also graded by the quality of the protein. So it's not the quantity of protein per se that will make good bread or flour that could be good for making bread. It's more the quality. And the quality of the proteins, resistance to fermentation is measured by this thing called a falling number. Do you know about the falling number? The FN? The FN. So the falling number measures, I think, like if wheat, for example, is grown in Western Massachusetts, if it's grown in Western Mass, and it's a wonderful, I always used to say massive two-shirts, but I kind of have that in my brain, so I like the state, it's a nice state, don't get me wrong. It's just like this weird kind of ism that I have. So, gross. I'm gonna take this apron off at some point. I'm gonna stand away from the table, So if the wheat is ideal, and then all of a sudden there's a rainstorm, and it gets wet and begins to germinate a little bit, the quality of the protein is now degraded. So it's not going to be as good for bread making. Fermentation be great for bread making, but it just can't undergo the same degree of fermentation the wheat could undergo if the wheat were like it were dry. So this is something that I think has been a current through the ages, whereby when you buy from a local, with bread culture we don't have. These are like both white crack flour varieties. They're not good. They're commodity flours basically. This is not a mill. This is a brand. They don't mill their own wheat. There's no difference between this and this other than labeling and packaging, and they contribute to no kid hungry, and they have the word goodness and good all over it. So this is probably a better product placement because it's such a strong seller. This one here is, again, the same grade of flour, but bleached, and for all I know, they were both made and both milled in the same plant. We don't have a wheat culture like we do a wine culture. For example, people wouldn't buy wine if they knew that or thought that it was just, frozen grape juice concentrates mixed together, and then you slap a label on it and it's wine, And we still live in the world where the use value of bread has more importance than any discussion about its aesthetic or, for example, where the grain comes from. During the colonial period of our nation, wheat was grown here. Wheat was grown everywhere. Virginia, North Carolina, New York State, Brooklyn, for example, had some of the finest wheat in the colonies. Who knew? Brooklyn was like a giant wheat field at one point. And that all changed, and it's a good thing because, a lot of the world's hunger issues have been resolved. But at the same time, what we did lose with wheat was it's where the wheat came from, where the grain came from, that it's not regional, right? Does anyone buy regional wheat here? There's a regional wheat movement here, right? There has to be, right? Isn't there? What? Main grains, yeah. Skihogan. Yeah, so there was a big regional wheat area that collapsed in a town called Skihogan, kind of like southern Maine, right? Central southern. Skowhegan. And that was like on the cusp of becoming a wheat region, I think in the late 1890s. And then when people were being encouraged and enticed and lured to move west, the regional grain economy went bye-bye. And it's only recently, in the last like 20 years or so, that there has been a re-regionalizing of and a shortening of the supply chains. It's just that a lot of that heirloom or boutique or regional wheat rarely sees like the Harvard set. I don't think any of the bread made in the cafeteria here is regional wheat. I mean, maybe more to do with the fact that you've got to feed a lot of people, and it ends up becoming a cost issue. But then again, it also ends up becoming a consistency issue as well, where to know how to work with wheat that can be variable based on the quality of its protein to get a consistent end result, you have to have knowledge, and that could, wheat's primary function is to feed people, not to be like, oh, this is a loaf of bread made from red fife or turkey red from so-and-so's farm in near Northampton, whatever, That's not the kind of conversation we have about wheat. It would be great if we did. I would love to see that, and I could even imagine, if I don't do any more demos, that could possibly happen. But anyway, I'm going to pass the dough around now because I wanted to let it sit and rest and get kind of jiggly. There's elasticity. And if we let it sit longer, it will become even more elastic, It's actually going to start to fall apart now that I've been playing with it. But I'm going to pass the dough. And if you guys want to, I know there's a lot of you here, so we can, theme music, everyone.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I propose we clap.